say thank you to Haley for the wonderful website she designed. It was really cool and amazing that she could pull that off. Lots of nice information there. And just everybody, the teachers and students, everybody is doing a great job. I think the elementary school, the K through 8, is really, it sounds like they're having a lot of good school going on and a lot of success. So kudos to everybody, the whole team. Awesome. Thank you. And so let's see, the first thing we have is the approval of the voucher. Did that come through? I'm going to check right now.
Amy, I can't, because I'm currently using my iPhone to do the Zoom because that's honestly the only thing I can. So I can't check the voucher. Well, I can. I have to go. I have to swipe up to access my email to look at the voucher.
I don't think
Am I allowed to do that during the meeting?
I don't think we got it.
Okay.
Did anybody? I'm looking right now. I don't see it.
I didn't think I saw it this morning, but I just wanted to make sure.
Amy, the last thing I found was 424. So that's been completed. So
that's so neat.
There may be a lag because of the remote learning and we're working offsite. It may not totally align with your meetings. So
okay.
I'll check, but it may be coming or she may not have anything. Sometimes, you know, the paper trail with the invoices is a little lagged, but if you don't have anything yet, I know that just the other day I sent an invoice to be processed. So you may not have a voucher right now.
Right. So, and we met about 2 weeks ago. So there may just be that the process, nothing came along.
Right.
So we'll just skip over the approval of voucher. Approval of minutes from April 10th, 2020. Did Haley submitted those? They're attached to the agenda. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve them?
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay. All right, discussion of the minutes. Approval of the minutes. No discussion. Okay, so all in favor of approval of the minutes, April 10th, 2020. Carrie, Allie?
I vote. Yes.
Okay. And Darlene, you
Aye.
vote? And I'll vote aye. So that's unanimous. Okay. Public comment that would have been received by the superintendent's office. So Mark.
Yeah, I just checked with Selena. I'm waiting to hear back, but I'm not aware of any, but if there is any before the end of the meeting, I'll pass it on to you. And again, as always, whatever we receive, we'll read into the record and make sure that that's public. But I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Very good. So moving on to reports and updates. So Haley, the principal report is first.
Okay. Well, it's only been 3 weeks since our last meeting, and one of those weeks was April vacation. So I don't have a lot of new information. We are still, we're still doing our weekly food boxes on Wednesday, and MDAS has opened up their lunch and breakfast program to our families. So that went out in last week's newsletter, and a link will go out every week where families can directly sign up with the kitchen at MDES, and lunches and breakfasts will be sent out on Monday and Thursday. So that's an expansion of that program, which is really great. And the district's done a really nice job of coordinating for everybody and including the Outer Islands. So it's really awesome. Families are also continued to be surveyed every week about remote learning. Not that we can address every single thing, but just to make sure that they have an opportunity or invited every week to, ask for anything. So we've been able to reach out and adjust a few things for individuals based on that. And then I think Longfellow did get filled. They missed the first round. They ran out of fuel and then came back, and we're on autofill with them now. And I think, end of year, a letter's going out to 8th graders today, just sort of acknowledging that the end of the school year is going to be different, that it is a disappointment for all of us, that we can't celebrate them in our traditional way, but that we'll be doing as many components of the traditional celebration as we can virtually. So that will also go out today with the newsletter. And I think that's it, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Haley.
Amy?
Yes, Mark? You just muted yourself, Mark.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I just heard back from Selena. At this time, we don't have any public comment we've received yet.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So does anyone have questions for Haley with the principal report? Okay. So moving, we don't need to accept it, right?
Nope.
Moving on to fall staffing update.
Just like to start off by saying that appreciate the support you guys have always given for certainly Haley and the staff. And you know, we've been looking at a lot of scenarios, and you know, we're certainly first and foremost in our minds want to do what's best for the kids in the school and the community, and we also want to be cognizant of, you know, the potential days ahead with the economy. So Haley came forward. I thought she did a wonderful job. She initiated this conversation, and you know, she and I went back and forth for a little bit, talking, just probing what it might look like. But this is a concept that Haley would like to present to you, which I support. And the reason I support it is because it's coming from her, but it's something for the school committee to think about. I don't think you need to act on it today, but hi guys. But you know, I think in short, it's just an opportunity for the school committee to consider some options, and that's a good thing. You have options. So Haley, why don't you take it away? And yeah, I know you got your hands full, dear. So, but they're doing great.
I know. I'll do my best if you can hear me through this. So the proposal that I submitted to Mark is, again, a concept at this point, and can be developed as, you know, we go through this spring. But as you guys know, I'm pretty invested and committed to the school. I love working with the kids. And so my idea was, hopefully, if this is approved, to expand my role as teaching principal. That could include some middle school teaching, and then differentiate the position so that we have some specialists in some content areas to hopefully retain some people that have been working with the kids already and have more continuity as we go into fall. I think it would be a little bit difficult to bring someone brand new in who doesn't know the kids at all or the school, and especially not knowing what the fall is going to look like. So it's an idea to maintain some continuity, people who know the kids, and keep the team sort of intact. And then we always have the option to reconsider at any time. Is that, Mark, is that a good?
Yeah, I mean, I think just because you and I are familiar, but in short, Haley, fill in the blanks that I'm going to say this. So what you're proposing right now, or what you have proposed, is to retain the position that we have with Haley Estabrook. Haley has indicated, you know, she's good to go and coming back. And so we would maintain the role of you as teaching principal. And then just to remind the school committee, you also have a small portion of your duties as the Frenchboro principal, but that's very limited. And this past year, that has not at all inhibited your ability to serve in your teaching or principal role in Cranberry. And so that's a major consideration for me. But in short, we have your budget's been passed. We have the money. What we're asking the school committee to consider is, think of this as a pilot, if you will. If you would agree that we'd like to try this, then Haley could work out what the schedules and the logistics would look like, so you could look at that. We still have the money in the budget. If the school committee wants to move forward and fill the position, we can do that. If the school committee gives permission to move forward and see how this goes, and if it works well for everybody, fine, the money stays and it's encumbered. However, if the school committee feels that they'd like to fill the position, or if at some point it doesn't look like this is working well, you have the money, you could fill the position as well. So I think in short, you have several options. I don't know if you have to make a decision today, but it would be good for us to know very soon how you would like to proceed, because if we are going to fill it, we should advertise and get that process going. Does that sound right, Haley?
Yeah, I think so. I know it's still kind of vague. So
yeah, I think they need to see what does the schedule look like and who's doing what. I mean, I think that's very important for them. The other thing to remind is that I think I heard you say this. We have some folks that have been doing work in the school. They continue to do work in the school. And this is an opportunity to retain some of those resources on a limited basis or part-time. Not, is that correct?
Yeah,
and
that's an important part of the plan.
We also would realize, I think, some financial savings, but we haven't projected that through Nancy. Is that correct, Haley?
Yeah, there would be savings as well.
Yeah.
So would you be using maybe some of the subs that we're using currently, keeping them on in a limited fashion?
Yeah, the idea would be under like certain content areas, like maybe science and social studies, and split up reading, writing, math between teachers.
Okay. And is this, I mean, it's like a big question mark right now as to what the fall is going to look like.
Yep.
As far as, are we going to be able to hold live school, you know, and the other thing, if schools are open, which I would hope, there's the boating, and do we, how do we feel about putting our kids on the ferry boat? It's different from any other community. We can't compare it to a school bus,
right?
Because it's got workmen and anybody who gets on the ferries on that boat,
right?
And what's is it more about the safety? The safety of the children has to come first, obviously, but the school works so much better to keep all the children together. You've got a very small group on both islands, but an even smaller group over on Great Cranberry. So I know we can't tell. We can't look into the future and see what's going to happen. But I think it's important to kind of think of, I like that you're thinking about the teaching plans and the options that we have. Does anybody is there a feel for how things are going to look in September as far as opening in September?
Do you want me to answer that now, Amy?
If you have any,
sure.
Yeah.
I did see Carrie's hand up, but yeah, I can answer that quickly. Well, first of all, what I'd say is that we're optimistic, we're hopeful, but my concern is that, and I'm just going to say this carefully, but on a wide front, it may be an aggressive approach, and my concern is that all the stuff that we've done to date, if we let our guard down and all of a sudden this starts to expand, then we're going to be right back where we were or worse. So I think until we've got some testing or we know where those hotspots are and can manage that, the likelihood of schools reopening is sketchy at best, number one. And number two, it's not people, not you folks, but some folks are looking at the governor's order to reopen the state as including schools, and it doesn't. The schools are totally separate from that. So Amy, I think you raised some really important points, and that is, how our parents and how our kids and how's the community going to feel even when we return about proximity. I mean, think about that boat you just identified with the social, with all the workmen's, and how are they going to control that? And what's the social distancing parameters and all of that? Those are all questions that are unanswered. I will say, so this forecast is really hard. We'll know more, I think, in a month. I think the other thing that we'll know is that, over the summer, as we start to see what happens with fishing and tourism and commerce and so on, and certainly social gatherings, we'll have an indicator as to what school may look like in the fall. I'll just say this, I can anticipate a couple of scenarios. One, it's good and we come back to school. What's the likelihood of that? I hope it happens, but boy, that seems slim. Another is an opening that is a phased approach, and the school day looks different. It's staggered. Now Cranberry is different because we have smaller groups of students and we don't have to worry about lunches per se, but we might have to think about shifts. I can remember a point in my career where we had a school that was impacted significantly because of an event, and we had to do double shifts at our high school. So there might be some creative things that we all have to look at outside of the box, and it's really hard to say. I will say this though, having a teaching principal is a real strong suit for you, and I say that because it's hard. You guys know the islands, it's hard for continuity. Once you get a good person, you want to keep a person, number one. Number two, when the person moves on and you get another one, sometimes it's not a good fit. Sometimes with Haley assuming the role, and again, this came from her, I wouldn't have proposed it because of, the situation with her family. I want to make sure she's supported, but she thinks she can pull it off. The other thing, she's had a year to do this. And the third thing is we have a very successful, Haley's been successful with it, but we have a very successful model on Swans Island going into our third year now of a teaching principal. And I think if you reached out as board members to Tammy Tripler and some of those other board members on Swans, as well as, maybe some other folks, they've been thrilled with it. And I know that Haley and Crystal have a strong network, so there's support there when those things come up. The other thing I will just say is that, boy, any opportunity to keep some of the good people that we've had in place now, that's awesome, and the more exposure we can give our kids to others, I think that's a good thing too. So I hope soon we're going to know what the fall looks like, Amy, but I could predict this scenario too. Schools reopen, we come back, and then that boomerang effect happens, where we get into a flu season and then we have to go into a remote mode again. So Continuity is going to be really important.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Carrie, did you have a question or something?
I mean, I definitely would love to see options because, as a community member, as a parent, I don't think that we will be in school in September. And I think that having options and seeing what Haley kind of has to offer, we're going into unique times, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that even though we're unabridged island schools, we're going to become even more unique because yes, we do have a small demographic. We have 2 schools. We have a good handful of parents who want their kids back in school already, even though there is this pandemic going around, people still want their kids back in school. I just think that the more options that we have to choose from, the better. And, we do have an amazing teaching principal in place. My question is, does this impact the special education part of her teaching? Will she still be able to focus on all those areas? I love the idea of keeping kind of some of the people that we have that are specialty people coming in, especially, I'll be honest, having Lauren teach the science, the kids love it. That's a passion of hers. It comes out in her teaching. The children love to watch her. They love watching the videos right now. So while we're in a very unique time right now, the remote learning in our household, even though it's incredibly stressful at times, is so dynamic to watch. And it's so, it is successful every day if we can maintain what we're doing in our own home, like my family can maintain. But I would love to hear Haley's proposal because I am one of those people that I like to hear all the options. I like to hear all the things, you know, in this time of pandemic. Are we even going to find a teacher that wants to come out to a small rural community? You know, so it's just, I would love to hear the options. I would love to see the proposal. And I think because we're in uncertain times, I'm rambling, but seeing how we're in uncertain times, everybody wants like a crystal clear answer about where we're going to be. And there is no clarity at the moment. We just got to keep going one day at a time. But I can't thank you guys enough. I mean, even this meeting like this is amazing. It's amazing.
Right.
All right, that's all my ramble. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie.
I would say, Amy, if, you know, we wanted to be careful. I didn't want Haley to put too much time and effort if the school committee was like, no, we don't want to go that. If it sounds to me like there's some potential interest, and we could have Haley develop what might be a schedule for you to look at so you can see the logistics of how it would work. And I don't think that would be difficult to turn around within the next week. And then if you look at that, and that's something you want to try, again, you reserve the right. The school committee has the funds. You're in a win-win situation because your budget was passed at a very, very, I think, conservative amount. And if this works, it's a win-win for the community, certainly for the kids, the community, and both from an educational standpoint, first and foremost, but financially too. Because I would just say that as much as I worry about the next fiscal year, I really am concerned about the following one, FY22. And I think as much as we can do to be conservative and make sure that we're looking at all of our resources and keeping them available, the better served we'll be. And, you know, finally, again, if at some point in time this isn't working for whatever reason, you've got the funds, and I'd be confident we could fill that.
Okay. And if say there's like a ruling that you can, you know, you can't have gatherings greater than 10 people, like they've
Right.
said before, but is there a way where we could do the remote learning? I mean, just one of the options maybe we could consider and think about is, can we use both schools, but for remote if we're in the remote learning,
Yeah.
and have a teacher on each island who can kind of have the kids come into school and do the remote learning and Zoom in with their specials teachers. And I want to try to at least see if we can research it and see if it's a possibility to be
I think you're in a really good position, better than many schools systems, because number one, you do have 2 schools. Number 2, the density of the population is less. So yeah, Amy, I think everything needs to be on the table as long as we can do it with, you know, safely. And I stayed away from mentioning that because I didn't want to make anybody nervous that, you know, we're trying to do something different. I'm very, very clear that we have 2 schools. We're committed to rotating. But again, these are extraordinary times. This is an emergency time. So we might need to do some things with school committee permission just to get us through these difficult times. And that could be one of the options.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to try to, you know, think of, as many possibilities, being that we are so small, that we're at least considering these things.
And the rationale might be, Amy, until we feel and parents feel and the board feels that, you know, the commuter boat piece is solid and there's everybody's comfortable with it, we may want to be in that realm for a while.
Okay. Okay, does anyone else have anything for staff, fall staffing?
So what I'd like to do then is Haley will work on Fenton will work on just a draft so that you can look at, see what it would look like, who's doing what, when. Is that okay?
So we'll look to get that in the email.
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
That'd be
Sounds
great.
good. Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna move on then to lift update.
Yes. So the $64,000 question. You probably know, we saw the email from Ingrid, and I didn't want anybody to get nervous because I reached out to both Holyoke Builders and Maine Accessibility Corporation. And so I have an email here that I'll read into the record. Just bear with me, please. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So here's what we have. First of all, from Maine Accessibility Corp, Kurt Osgood, the service manager, he wrote back to me on Tuesday and said, "Hi, Mark," because I sent him an email. I said, "I need an update." He wrote back and said, "Hi, I know we're waiting on Nate Holyoke's crew, that's the contractor, to finish painting the hoistway prior to our machine installation. The doors and wires are all installed, and I was told they'd at least finished wiring the electrical installation," that being Holyoke. "Last I knew, travel to the island was limited by the coronavirus, so I don't think they can finish until that opens up. Spencer from Holyoke may be able to confirm that." And then I had this from Spencer. Sorry. Here we go. So Spencer from Holyoke Builders writes, "Mark and Kurt, we still have to finish painting the hoistway and trim out the doors." So minor stuff. "The ferries have been closed to all non-Great Cranberry residents since March 31st, and we've not been able to get out. I've been in contact with Beal and Bunker and a few contacts we have on the island about traveling there. We plan to go back out in May, so happy May, if we're able to wrap this and another project up. I don't have an exact date yet as the boats are still up in the air, but hoping by mid-May, Governor Mills' declaration of civil emergency is supposed to end on the 15th, he writes. Things will open up again." So I think they're just waiting for the boat. It sounds like some very, very minor things to, trim and paint. All the bones, if you will, the skeletal framework, all the things we were majorly concerned about, that's all done. And so once they do the trim and the paint, in we go and we're done. And the only delay, nobody should get nervous, the only delay has been the travel back and forth to the island. So that's where we're at, and I'll stay on these guys unless you have any questions.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Yeah, we look forward to seeing that get finished up.
I mean, I think once you start to see the boats traveling back, that's a good indicator that, the wheels of progress will move.
Okay. Any questions for Mark on that? Okay.
You should see in your next voucher too, you should see an invoice, which I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that we're probably nearing the end of those, but I think it's around $4,000 was the last one, and I sent it over to be processed.
Okay.
And then I'll get a reconciliation for you at the end for the amount of money that was encumbered and then what we spent.
Okay. All right. So then we're going to move on to the remote learning update.
Is there any chance we could come back to that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You know what? I can help you out with that a little bit. The specifics of the school Haley can give you, but I would just like to give a shout out to the kids and the parents and the staff. Everybody's doing the best they can with it. We all know that this is not seat time, direct instruction. And I think our kids are doing the best they can. Our staff is doing the best they can. We've said that we're doing remote learning for the remainder of the year. And I wanted to remind the board members that we're going to have an AOS meeting on Monday. Amy's been great at participating with all the board chair updates, and I'll be making a recommendation on the end of school. I would just say with remote learning, there's three camps. There's some folks, and this is kids, parents, and staff. Some folks think, well, our kids aren't where they need to be. They need to go longer. So some folks feel that way. Some folks feel, man, remote learning is like hard. We need to we've done the best we can. We need to end this now. And then there are some folks that are saying, well, we just need a little bit more time. So there's kind of three camps. And at the end of the day, I'm going to make a recommendation on Monday in terms of what we believe after talking with teachers, talking with administrators, getting a lot of feedback, what we believe is best for kids. We know contractually where staff will end. It's just a question of what's the best way to end for our kids. And so I'll have that on Monday. I'm thinking an early June end date.
School year?
Yes. Yep.
And then the AOS votes on that.
Yep. Just for continuity purposes. Yep. And I, again, and just so the board knows, Cranberry and all the other boards have been in constant communication, board chairs. So they've been in the loop. There's, I don't want anybody to think that anybody's trying to box anybody in. This has been a collaborative process.
And then, so then once the AOS makes a decision, is that applies to all of us, or?
That's, Amy, that's a good question. And I'm going to say this, that's the way we've been doing it, and it's worked well. But just like policy, I just have to say, you're an independent school committee, and school committees set policy, school committees set calendars, school committee hire and evaluate superintendents. So, through the interlocal agreement, we've tried to stay together, and it's worked so far. We're going to continue to try to do that. But, again, there's always that piece in there for a local school committee to weigh in and make other decisions. The calendars, we recognize, especially the outer islands, things are a little different, but it's great for professional development and other reasons if we have continuity for our high school, for HCTC and all those. So we do try to stay together as a group, but yeah. So, I'll have more information too on Monday as well.
And all three of us are welcome to call into the AOS meeting to Zoom into it.
Absolutely.
But only one of us would have voting privilege. Is that how it goes, or?
It's portioned out. I'll double check with Selena that, it's portioned out. It's a weighted vote. So I believe that's correct, Amy, and I'll double check.
Okay.
And then you can determine, the way it works is that, for example, like, I think it's Bar Harbor might have 3 votes, and it's portioned out, but they rotate around, and the board members, they actually have a system where they rotate who's going to vote at certain meetings. It's never the same people, but yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Haley, did you want to come back to your remote learning portion, or are you ready now?
Yes, I think I'm ready.
Did I buy you enough time?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it already in the principal's report, so I'm not sure if I have that much to add unless there's any questions. So we're still just keeping with the same format that we had been. There will be a packet going out to all middle school students tomorrow on the boat of more offline activities for those families and students who need a little break from screen time and want some more kind of pencil paper type stuff to do. But other than that, we're kind of just keeping the same course. The Learn team is working on recommendations for end of year summaries and things to sort of wrap up the school year that way. So we're just waiting on those directives to finish out the year, but everything's just kind of humming along. So, I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Any questions? No, Carrie's not with us right now, but I've heard good reports about the remote learning, so that's great. Okay, so revenue and budget is next.
I think a lot of the things that I said earlier, you guys are in a much better position than most communities in that you've had your town meeting, you got your town meeting in, and you passed your budget. And the other thing that I would say about your budget is that, I think it was very conservative. It was, I hope it was well received by the community, but just because the budget's been passed, we are very, very cautious of the times we're in. And of course, we're always looking to make sure we have a lot of scrutiny on the budget, but now more than ever in these uncertain times, we're really going to be very judicious. And so if the school committee has any questions about anything we're doing or not doing, let us know. So you're in a much better situation because we know our operating budget on Cranberry. Many of our schools who haven't had town meetings will start the year without a budget. And what that means is we'll have to go on the current fiscal year operating budget, which sounds okay. But if we advance things like insurances and contracts, there's going to be a revenue gap for many of those schools, which will mean that I'll have to invoke spending freezes on accounts and all kinds of things. It's really, really a nightmare that we hopefully, well, at this point, we can avoid on Cranberry, which is very, very fortunate for the school. The impact of the insurances was still going to give you a reconciliation of the differential between the health insurance rate of 5.83, which is what it came in as, versus what we budgeted at 10. The other piece is too, if we do move forward with the plan, with the teaching principal expanding the role, there'll be some savings there, and I want to make sure that the school committee sees that projection. We'll get that through Nancy, and then that'll obviously be encumbered as well. So that's all I have at this point, because you're not in a position really right now where you have to make any cuts or do any freezes unless you have any questions about that.
But we are saving a considerable amount of money without the boating. We're saving
Correct.
a lot.
You are. You're probably saving on fuel because that the temperature has been directed to be turned down. I'm not sure about your technology. I'd have to look at that. Haley could probably speak to that, but in many of our schools, some of our technology lines are up because we're wanting to make sure that, we can support the remote learning. And the other piece that doesn't impact you is the food budgets in some are up because we're serving more families in need. But no, those are good points, Amy. Energy costs certainly would be savings, and boats and things of that nature. Yes, correct.
Okay.
But I just want to note there may be some things, as Haley or the principals request or teachers to support remote learning, some of those invoices might look different down the road. And again, depending upon what the fall looks like.
Okay. So any questions about revenue budget from Darlene? No? Okay.
And certainly, anytime, you don't have to wait for meetings. Always feel free to email or call us anytime you guys ever have a question.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is discussion items, but we didn't really have anything listed as a discussion item.
Did you guys have any questions or anything you want us to work on, or? Okay.
It's all kind of unknown right now. I mean, yep. Just really thinking about the fall, but we already talked about that, and Haley's working on a plan. So,
well, again, always feel comfortable to reach out. I mean, we want to make sure that we can answer anything publicly, but if you have something in advance of a meeting, don't hesitate. We can get you information.
Darlene, did you have anything you wanted to have for discussion? No? Okay.
Okay. No, thank you for asking.
Okay.
Darlene, how about your cat? Does your cat have any questions?
Yeah.
So the next thing is action items, which we also didn't have anything on the agenda.
Right. You approved your probationary teacher piece. We will want to be doing a wrap up here shortly. I'll need to get an evaluation done of Haley, and we'll Haley, our principal, who I'll just say I think is doing an outstanding job, but we'll need to do a wrap up piece at the end of the year on that as well.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask her and others to be doing a reflection piece. So I think it's much more powerful when they can talk to you about their accomplishments, the things that they felt that they've been successful with, but the things that they feel that they need to work on. I find people are generally really, really honest, and they have a pretty good grasp, and then that helps us have a good plan moving forward.
So Mark, you'll be working on that evaluation?
Yes, I've got a ton of those to do like everybody else. Yeah. Again, I just want to say publicly that I think Haley's doing a wonderful job, and
She is.
So I don't want anybody to get nervous about that stuff.
So are we going to need an executive session for that or no?
We generally, when we do the evaluation of the principal, we do that in the
Okay.
executive session because it's a personnel matter. But again, we can talk more about that. Maybe schedule that for the next meeting. Wouldn't be a problem.
Okay. All right. All right. So moving on to other business. Anybody have other business? No?
Just a note, if we don't, I got another Zoom meeting at 10, but
Okay.
I'll be available after that.
Okay. And public comment. Any public comment that's come in?
Nope.
No.
I just checked with Selena and nothing to date. But again, if we have anything, we'll bring it forward next time.
Okay. So future agenda items.
We'll have
Carrie, welcome back.
we'll have an executive session, principal evaluation. Hopefully, by that time, the school committee, the next meeting, will have had a chance to digest Haley's recommended plan and then decide, how you want to proceed there. Hopefully we'll have a clearer pathway on remote learning and where we're headed. Certainly another lift update and
Yeah.
anything else that you folks would want.
Right. Let me just check in with Carrie. We basically, did you have anything for discussion, Carrie, that didn't get addressed yet? Okay. Okay, so our next meeting date. Do we want to establish something now?
Sure. I think that if you guys are okay, we can certainly move things up. But unless we have news or something to act on, is June 5th okay, or do you want to do it sooner? I had that as our next regularly scheduled meeting.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Keep on schedule with that. Okay. June
Yep.
5th.
Yep. And if this time works for you guys, that'd be great. Whatever you want to do.
Will school technically be in session still? Possibly. Okay.
Possibly. It might
The only
possibly be the last day.
That's the only reason I ask is just because of timing in my house.
Yeah.
For all of us to be on Zoom at the same time, there's a
Sure.
lot of feedback. So
Yep.
9 o'clock worked for me.
Okay.
Because then there are only 2 of us are on Zoom.
Sure. I can
Okay.
be flexible if there's a better time for you guys. As long as I'm not double booked, whatever works for you guys.
And Haley, this time 9 works for you? Okay. And Darlene, yeah? Okay. So
Good.
let's do 9 again.
Okay.
Okay. So we can adjourn. Let's adjourn the meeting at 9:47.
Yeah, you just need a vote to adjourn.
We need a vote. We need a vote in a second. Or,
I motion, we adjourn.
okay. Okay. I'll second.
Great.
All right. Carrie, now it's vote time. Carrie? We got to hear you, I think.
Yes.
Okay. Darlene?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay.
Great. Good
Adjourn.
to see you all. Happy May, guys.
Thank you,
so much.
everybody. And thank you to Josh for streaming us.
Yes. Take care.